That's fine. Hi, Stephen. I'm gonna turn us on here.
Oh, how's it going? Good?
Going well. How's everything with you?
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Hi Kelly, how you doing?
Well, how are you?
That's so much fun. A lot of interesting projects.
Can you hear us all right?
Well, that's good.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and
Okay,
clear.
Perfect.
Yeah, we had a select board meeting on
I
Monday,
can,
and one of our members, he's not well, he's going through all kinds of radiation and stuff, so he joins us by Zoom. The Zoom audio wasn't working,
oh, no.
so it was not much fun. The video was fine, but you wanted to say something, we do not, thumbs up or thumbs down. So, what Paul Cohen did is he called him on his phone and put it on speaker, so the video was going through Zoom, but the audio was going through the phone, which wasn't the smoothest thing, but.
Yeah. Oh, Pat, this is Michelle. Michelle, this is Pat.
Nice to meet you.
I think you probably met in the interview, right?
Yes, I remember now.
Yeah, okay.
Nice to meet you in person.
Nice to meet you. And I'm surrounded by staff.
Yeah. You're practically staff. Pat's our unpaid staff person.
Most of their stuff.
Okay.
You want to agenda?
Yes,
Should I do
please.
agenda? I think we-
Yeah.
Okay.
Miranda, do you know if, oh, there's Steve, okay. Just wondering who is supposed to, or chairing today.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Stephen, how are you?
Hello.
Good. Busy day today.
Yeah, back-to-back MPO meetings, I'm sure.
Oh, among other things.
Yeah, yeah, among everything else. Right, let me, oh, thank you. I am going to share my screen here. Mhm. Everyone seeing that already?
Yep,
Yep, all set.
Mhm. One, two, three. I believe we have quorum. I know Karen may be showing up late, but between Pat, Stephen, Brian, and was Stephen Vallis and Stephen Wolfle, we have quorum.
all right. Why don't we get going then? So welcome everyone to the Northern Middlesex MPO meeting of February 26th. Who's going to do the roll?
I will do the roll.
All right, please take it away.
All right, so we have Stephen Wolfle,
Steve Wolf will represent the Secretary and CEO of MassDOT. Monica Tippett's not here.
Brian Fallon,
Brian Fallon representing Highway Administrator Jonathan Gulliver.
Pat Wojcik,
Here.
Stephen Thamalis.
NMCOG Chair, present.
Okay, and I don't know if I saw Karen in the room yet. And I don't believe Tom Boma will be joining us. And is Wayne Janess here? Perhaps joining later. So we do have quorum with Pat, Stephen, Brian, and Stephen.
All right, thank you and welcome again, everyone. Let's move to second agenda item, which is open forum. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the MPO today? All right, seeing none, why don't we move to agenda item 3, which is approval of the minutes?
Actually, before we do that, I do want to take a quick moment and introduce some of
Okay.
our new staff.
Oh, sorry.
So we have, actually, I'm going to quick stop sharing a second here. So we have a number of new staff people, both on our transportation team, and we have another staff person here who's joining as our regional energy manager. So I just wanted to take a moment and introduce, we'll start with Apple. If you want to just introduce yourself and a little bit about your background and your role.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Apple Gould Schultz. I've been here for about a month and a half at this point. I am a transportation planner with my background primarily in urban forestry and urban space for urban environments. I am working primarily on expanding cyclist and pedestrian access in the greater Lowell region, as well as supporting other members of the team and the GIS capacity.
Great, thank you. And we have Emmanuel.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Amani Ragasa. I'm a new transportation planner at NMCOG. Already been here almost 3 weeks now. And I have a background in transport policy and planning, especially focusing on road safety. And I'm working now on the Greater Lower Vision Zero plan as well as the bike and pedestrian planning. So very exciting project. We just kicked off today with the Police Design Group. And I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Michelle.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle. I'm the Regional Energy Manager at NMCOG. And I just started on Monday, so very excited to be here. Still kind of getting up to speed with different planning projects. And my background is in energy efficiency research. So my previous role was a research associate, kind of evaluating energy efficiency programs throughout the Northeast. So really excited to be here and working on different projects like climate action plans for various towns within the region.
Thank you all. And we're just to add, we're just very happy to be staffed up and to have all these new members on our team. And I think so far we've been working together really well. So I'm excited to see where the next year is going to take us.
Well, on behalf of all the members, welcome all of you to Northern Middlesex. And sorry about that, Kelly. I'm just in the mode of like.
No, it's okay.
All right. So now we good to go to 3, probably?
Yes.
All right. Can I get a
minutes.
motion and a second to approve the January 22nd minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Are there any questions or changes to the minutes? All right. Seeing none, Kelly, you want to read the roll?
All right. Stephen Wolfle,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Abstain.
Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
and Stephen Thamalis.
Aye.
All right, minutes approved. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you all. We'll now move to agenda item 4, which is the LRTA Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, which is an action item. Kelly, who's handling this?
So I believe Ally Bent or Justin
Yep.
Howard is going to be
All right,
presenting.
take it away, Ally.
Okay. Kelly, okay, here we go. Great.
And sorry, the funds didn't convey, so I'm not sure what happened here.
Okay. Okay, so if you want to go to the next slide. So under the PTAS regulation, we're required to update our safety plan annually. This year involved incorporating the first round of major updates to the regulation since FDA published the final rule in 2018. The update implements bipartisan infrastructure law safety requirements, including expanding safety training, advancing systems to protect transit riders and workers, setting performance targets for safety risk reduction programs, and protecting transit workers from assault and people from collisions with transit vehicles. The LRTA Safety Committee and Advisory Board voted to approve the LRTA's updated safety plan in September, and then the plan was amended shortly after in December to correct a typo in the targets. A link to the plan was included with the meeting materials, so I'm just going to highlight the key changes and answer any questions before asking the MPO to vote to endorse the new safety performance targets. Next slide, please. So the first key update I want to note is the expanded frontline worker protections. So the bipartisan infrastructure law requires de-escalation, hazard identification, and refresher training for frontline workers, and requires maintenance to be included in the safety training program. Through our safety risk management process, we assess the risk of exposure to infectious diseases and will implement agreed upon mitigations, things like providing operators with PPE or keeping disinfectant on the buses. Just for examples. A key goal of the PTAS regulation is to facilitate open lines of communication between management and frontline workers. So it's essential to communicate any results of safety committee activities to all the workers. And depending on the action, that may include distributing a new policy, posting bulletins in the driver rooms, or making announcements to the drivers. Next slide, please. The update further defined and expanded the roles and responsibilities of the safety committee. So we established the safety committee in our previous safety plan update, and that includes an equal number of frontline worker representatives selected by the labor unions and then management representatives. So the LRTA safety committee frontline representatives include 2 of our fixed route drivers, a paratransit driver, and a maintenance representative. And then the management representatives are the general managers for fixed route and paratransit, and then the fixed route operations manager and operations coordinator. Written safety committee procedures now are included in our safety plan, and any disputes are to be resolved through the resolution processes that are outlined in the fixed route and the paratransit collective bargaining agreements. The safety committee is responsible for reviewing and approving any updates to the safety plan, and they must set safety performance targets for the safety risk reduction program for all modes of transportation, and those are based on a 3-year rolling average of the data and to the level of detail we're required to submit to the National Transit Database. The safety committee supports the LRTA safety management system by identifying and recommending mitigations necessary to reduce the likelihood and severity of potential consequences identified through safety risk assessments, identifying any mitigations that may be ineffective or not implemented as intended, and identifying safety deficiencies for the purpose of continuous improvement. These also include safety risk mitigations that are associated with an instance where the LRTA did not meet an annual target in the safety risk reduction program. Next slide, please. So the safety risk reduction program aims to improve safety performance by reducing the number and rates of accidents, injuries, and assaults on transit workers. It addresses the reduction and mitigation of vehicular and pedestrian accidents involving transit vehicles and addresses the reduction and mitigation of assaults on transit workers. It also references all mitigations identified and recommended by the safety committee. Under the safety risk reduction program, the safety committee must set safety performance targets for the safety risk reduction performance measures established in the National Safety Plan, consider mitigations to reduce visibility impairments for transit vehicle operators, including retrofits to vehicles in revenue service and specs for future procurements, and consider the deployment of assault mitigation infrastructure and technology on transit vehicles and in transit facilities, including barriers to restrict the unwanted entry of individuals into the driver operating station. The accountable executive, which is the LRTA administrator, must implement mitigations recommended by the safety committee for the safety risk reduction program and consider all other recommended safety risk mitigations not included in the safety risk reduction program. If the accountable executive decides not to implement a mitigation unrelated to the safety risk reduction program, they must prepare a written explanation and present it to the advisory board of the LRTA. And they must establish a safety set aside to allocate no less than 0.75% of the Section 5307 funds to eligible safety related projects. And if a safety risk reduction program target is not met, then the safety set aside must be allocated in the following fiscal year to eligible projects likely to assist in meeting the target. Next slide, please. So this update to the PTAS regulation really expanded the required safety performance targets, and those are the ones established in the National Safety Plan. So the Safety Committee must set targets for the safety risk reduction program targets identified in that safety plan. And those must be based on a 3-year rolling average of data that's reported to the National Transit Database. And where the general and the safety risk reduction program measures are the same, the LRTA opted to just use the targets set by the Safety Committee for the safety risk reduction program to satisfy the general requirement. And then lastly, I'd just like to note that under Administrator Bradley's lead, the LRTA has kept safety the #1 priority through the safety plan regulation, and since it was implemented, we've got an open line of communication between the frontline operators and maintenance staff, whose input on the conditions in the field and the practicality of implementing a new technology or changing procedures is invaluable. We've leveraged our federal and state dollars for safety projects over the last few fiscal years, and will continue to do so. That wraps up the major changes. So on this slide here, these are the annual safety performance targets. All of the rates are per 1 million vehicle revenue miles, and the ones with the asterisk are part of the safety risk reduction program. I'm sorry for the formatting on this slide because it looks like a couple of them are cut off. Hold on. It's just the system reliability measure that's cut off, and for a fixed route, that's 121,000 vehicle revenue miles, and system reliability is miles between major mechanical failures, and for demand response, it's 153,079 vehicle revenue miles. And so the vote is for the MPO is required to vote to adopt the safety targets, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, anyone have any questions, Ally?
Steve, let's have one question, Ali. Just curious on the safety committees, what the overview, do they look at like the safety training for bus drivers and recertification renewals and those kinds of things to keep them up to date?
Yeah, so there's a safety training program, and those, again, for personnel records, those are kept. There's trainings that they're required to do. But the safety committee can absolutely weigh in on those if there's additional trainings that they're interested in, or whether refresher training is needed on certain things. Again, there's very much open lines of communication, and again, so those would be brought up in our regular safety meetings. The unions themselves also have safety meetings, and things can come, if there's, say, a training that's recommended from, from the union or something like that, that can be implemented as well.
Are those like annual reviews, or just, in terms of agenda items, how do they, what kind of flags raised to you go back and take a look at, certifications and so forth for your drivers?
So, as part of the onboarding program for new drivers, there's a set of, trainings that need to be completed. And then on the fixed route side, there's the CDL licensing. But as far as refresher training, there's a general cadence of things that, some trainings are done annually or every other year or something like that. But if there is something, an accident or, if we're working with the insurance company and something's recommended and there's a particular driver that's identified for refresher training, or if an incident happens and we think that everybody should be retrained on something, there's the ability to do that as well.
Okay, thanks, Ally.
All right, any other questions?
I actually have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
This is very current, because I saw in the Lowell Sun that there was unfortunately a fatality in relation to a bus 2 days ago. And I'm noticing here that the fatalities benchmark is 0. So my question is, what does this plan say happens when you exceed that benchmark, and what does LRTA do?
Yep. Excuse me. So in that case, what we'll do is a safety risk assessment. And so when there's any sort of accident anyway, there's always a review done to see, if things were preventable or not. If there is something that, over the course of the investigation of that and through the safety committee, if there was something that was recommended to do to try to mitigate the risk of something like that happening in the future, then it'd be on the LRTA to provide resources to carry that out. And under that safety risk reduction program, I talked about the safety set aside. So when targets that, and again, when you look at this list, the targets with the asterisk are the ones that are in the safety risk reduction program. The safety set aside has to be allocated toward projects that are likely to assist in then meeting the targets. I know the fatalities target isn't in the safety risk reduction program, but that doesn't mean we won't look at it. There's not a penalty for not meeting the targets, but for the safety risk reduction program, you do need to take actions and allocate resources so that you are less likely to miss the target again. And we review the plan annually, including the targets. And the safety risk reduction program targets are based on a 3-year rolling average. So we'll review the historical data every year as well and update the targets as needed.
All right, anyone else have any questions for Ally? All right, I don't see any. Can I get a motion and second to approve the performance targets as detailed here by Ally today?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, any last questions? All right, seeing none, Kelly, you want to read the roll?
Sure, and I just want to acknowledge that we have Karen Pulio in the room as well, so I'll be adding her to the roll. Steve Wolfel,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes.
Pat Rochus,
Yes.
Stephen Kanalis,
Yes.
and Karen Pulio.
Abstaining just due to the time of my entry.
All right, thank you very much. So all approved with 1 abstention. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ally. We'll move on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 5, which is the transportation evaluation criteria update. So Kelly, I don't know who's doing that, but.
So that is going to be Blake Acton.
Hello again, my name is Blake Acton, transplanter at NMMPO. So I believe what this particular action item is to vote to approve the final version of the transportation evaluation criteria following the closure of the public comment period. The board approved releasing it for public comment, the draft, in the last meeting. And so what we have here is just a quick sort of refresher as to what this is and what we're doing. So the transportation evaluation criteria, or TEC scores as we call them, is a way that we rank or score projects in the transportation improvement program, or the TIP. And the purpose, the idea of doing that is to prioritize and rank projects that would have the greatest impact and that follow our regional goals as we've established in our Envision 2050, our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. An interesting fact that I found out in the intervening time period between between opening up for public comment is that the last time we updated the TEC scores was federal fiscal year 2006. So that took a little bit of historical digging. So that is a very important reason why we're updating the TEC scores, is because they need to be revisited after not being significantly changed in 19 years. And so how are we changing the TEC scores? Overall, we're changing the TEC scores to better align with our regional goals and with Greater Lowell Vision Zero. And we're doing a few minor updates to some of the scoring subcategories that you can see in the memo. Every single change is spelled out exactly word for word. And then two of the most important changes that we discussed last time is increasing the weight of safety. The way it's done is that there's 6 categories in the scoring system and they were all equally weighted with each other. So 1 out of 6 or 16.7%. So safety is going from that 1 out of 6 to it being a weight of 30%. So we're going to increase the weight of safety to try to improve the safety of the transportation system, put more priority on projects that improve safety following Vision Zero. And then the second major change is introducing a transportation equity bonus score. We could talk a little bit more about the details of that when we talk about the public comment, but let's move on to the second slide about tech scores. So we received 1 public comment during the public comment period. It was a long multi-port comment, so this is sort of the most condensed version of our response to the comment. So the commenter expressed support for our increased emphasis on safety and equity, but raised some concerns about the implementation of those. More specifically, concerns about the transportation equity bonus score. The way we set that up before in the draft version was that if a transportation project was within a 1/4 mile distance of a regional equity priority community, these are communities that we established in our Vision Zero plan. The way that we had it is that the bonus score would be applied either 1 point or 2 points, depending on proximity. The commenter mentioned that proximity is sort of a simplistic, maybe somewhat crude way of establishing bonus scores for transportation, because transportation is something that facilitates connections and that it's possible to have benefit to a community that is farther away than a 1/4 mile. So in response to that, we actually updated that section in the memo to have a 2-step process where we're going to start with the distance measure to sort of make things a little bit easy for us for projects that are within that distance. But then the second step is that if a project is outside of that 1/4 mile, then we're going to really evaluate whether or not that project is possibly going to provide meaningful benefits to a nearby equity priority community, regardless of distance. And so we detail out in the revised memo what sorts of characteristics we're going to look at. There's nothing too exciting or new about what we're doing with that. It's pretty much like improved access to essential services, opportunity, employment, enhanced mobility, environmental impacts, safety improvements, things like that. And so what this means is that if a project is beyond that 1/4 mile, it still can receive points, is the conclusion to that. So the second part of this comment is specifically asked about what happens if a transportation project in a priority community is potentially not adding benefit. An example of that would be maybe a highway expansion or something like that through a priority community where it's benefiting through travel as opposed to benefiting the community that's around it. So we did add an exception to step 1 that could disqualify a project if we conclude that there is clearly no benefit or if the project could potentially harm the nearby regional equity priority community. And then finally, the commenter expressed the desire for a safety ranking methodology in our tech scores, and we are pleased to report that that is already a part of the revision. We have 2 subcategories in the safety category where we are using our Vision Zero plan's high injury network and high risk network, where if a project is improving safety within those high risk areas, then those projects will receive additional points in the safety section. So that's my summary of the comments, and the request now is either discussion or vote for approval of the tech revision.
All right, does anyone have any questions?
I have a couple questions for Blake. So these new text scores be implemented for this year's tip?
Yes,
Okay,
we're working on scoring them right now.
okay. And are there any other approvals besides ours that are needed to implement, to go forward with these changes?
No, this is just the MPO's vote, and that would allow us to actually formally use these as our official scoring method going forward.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else have any questions? Thanks, Pat. All right, does someone want to make a motion and a second to adopt the updated TEC criteria?
I'll make a
Karen,
motion
so
to,
moved. Oh, sorry, Pat.
Okay, that's okay, I'll second that.
Thank you.
All right, last check, chance for any questions. All right, Kelly, you want to read the roll, please?
Sure, Stephen Wolfle,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes.
Pat Wotis,
Yes,
Stephen Thamalis,
Yes.
and Karen Coolio.
Yes.
Yeah, all approved. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for that. Good job. Let's move on to agenda item 6, which is also an action item. It's the memorandum of understanding. So Kelly,
Yes.
who's doing this?
That is me.
All right, take it away.
The first is regarding the memorandum of understanding between the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, MassDOT, and the LRTA. This memorandum of understanding, the MOU, was released by the MPO last month for public comment, so it was out for a 30-day public comment period. We did not receive any comments in response to this. I do want to point out that before we released it as amended during the MPO meeting. So we did fix a number of things like the 3C. We corrected the ability of, in the earlier version of the document, we had listed that the chair was able to basically veto the votes of all other participating members. And so that has been corrected. That no longer is part of the document. But and any other minor changes that were mentioned during last month's meeting were added prior to issuing that for public comment. And so I'm happy to answer any questions or pull that document up if there's anything that anyone wants to review. It was linked to in the agenda for this meeting. And so you're also able to find it on our calendar page. But otherwise, we are requesting a vote to endorse this as our new MOU, which would become effective on March 24, 2025, which is the date of the expiration of our current MOU.
So Kelly, we're going to do these in 2 separate votes, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's just what I thought. All right, anyone have any questions for Kelly? All right, does someone want to make a motion and a second to endorse the new memorandum of understanding between MCOG, MassDOT, and LRTA?
Motion to approve.
second,
All right, last call. Any questions? Seeing none, Kelly, you want to read the roll?
All right. Steve Wolfle,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes.
Pat Wotis,
yes,
Karen Coolio,
Yes.
and Stephen Thamalis.
Yes.
All approved. Thank you very much. So for the second MOU, this is the other MOU that we are engaged with as an MPO. This is because we are part of the Nashua UZA. And so this MOU was also linked to in our agenda items. The primary reason for updating this MOU is in response to the 2020 census data, which basically removed part of Montechusett, I believe, from the Nashua UZA. And so this is a memorandum of understanding between a lot of entities, the Nashua RPC, the Southern New Hampshire RPC, NMMPO, the New Hampshire DOT, MassDOT, New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, Nashua Transit System, Manchester Transit Authority, and the LRTA. And so we are requesting, sorry, between all those entities that I just mentioned. And so we're requesting that this be, we're requesting that the MPO vote to release this for a 30-day public comment period. And just to mention that this MOU was updated throughout meetings of these various entities over the last few months. However, there were not many substantial amendments to the prior MOU. It was really just to update reflecting 2020 census figures and kind of the new composition of this group.
All right, anyone have any questions for Kelly?
Yeah, any questions?
All right, seeing that, does someone want to make a motion and a second to send this out for public comment?
Motion to approve.
it's actually a motion to send for public comment, right?
Yeah.
Right. All right, last call for any questions? Seeing none, Kelly, you want to read the roll?
Or do we have a second?
Yeah, I think
Oh,
that
sorry,
was,
motion
Stephen
to
was
release for
first.
public comment.
I made the motion.
Yeah, you can comment second.
Okay, thanks, Pat. All right. So, Steve Wolfle,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes.
Pat Wojcik.
Yes.
Steve Thamalis,
Yes.
and Karen Coolio.
Yes.
All right, we will release this for public comment and have a public hearing. It'll coincide with one of the upcoming tip amendments, and so that'll be on March 5.
All right. Thank you for that, Kelly. Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to agenda item 7, which is another action item to the federal, this time to the federal fiscal year 25 UPWP amendment number 2. Kelly, are you handling this as well?
Yeah. So this is another document that was released for public comment during the last the last NPO meeting. And this is with regard to a change in location of a project, that is described in task 5.2 of our Unified Planning Work Program. Really because that original project on Chelmsford Billerica Route 129 is not ready to proceed. And so we did have we had approval from both communities to basically postpone that project until such date when they are ready to proceed, and instead replace that with a study of Chelmsford Center Village. We received one public comment regarding this, that really was about the slight differentiation in the sort of how you would describe these two environments. Route 129 and Brick Hill Road is much more of a like a highway condition and throughway, and you have a lot of heavy vehicle traffic, whereas Chelmsford Center Village has much more of a walkable center, much more transit oriented. And there was a request by this public commenter to make sure that we're incorporating transit operations and looking at origin destination as part of this study. We do intentionally in our UPWP don't go so detailed as to provide very specific scopes of work for any individual task, because we do want the flexibility when we get to the point where we begin that project to work with the local planners and local engineers in order to be more specific about those tasks. And so I have a separate scope of work for this project because we are pairing this funding with district local technical assistance funding, so that we'll be doing kind of a comprehensive economic development study, property use study, and then using UPWP funding to really focus on walkability, bikeability, origin destination, transit, and all of these necessary connections along this stretch of road in Chelmsford Center Village. So I believe that in the more detailed scope of work, we are adequately responding to the comments, concerns. But I don't think that the detail of those concerns necessarily belongs in the Unified Planning Work Program. So with that, we have not proposed to change the substance of what was originally presented to the NPO last month too much, and so, or actually at all. So I think with that, if given that the public comments are going to be incorporated into the scope of work with agreement by the Chelmsford Town Planner, we have a request for the NPO to vote to endorse amendment to the FY 25 UPWP.
All right, can I get a motion second to endorse amendment number 2 to the UPWP?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
All right.
I can see this could be the issue with the two of you this day. I'm just kidding. All right.
Competition's good.
Questions? What's that, Stephen?
Said competition's good.
I know. Are there any questions for Kelly on this? All right, seeing none, Kelly, you want to read the roll?
Sure. Steve Wolfle,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes.
Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Stephen Thamalis,
Yes.
and Karen Coolio.
Yes.
The motion passes. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, everyone. We'll move on to the last action item, I believe, today. Agenda item 8 on the federal fiscal year 25 to 29 tip amendments. So Kelly, I don't know who's doing this, but
Yeah, I'm just gonna follow up on amendment 2, because that is at the close of a public comment period, and then we have a new tip amendment that Blake is going to describe. So we'll probably do these one at a time.
Okay.
The first one is on the statewide tip. This is the Burlington to Tingsboro pavement preservation on Route 3. The program cost basically changed. And so we needed to do a tip amendment in order to reflect the new program costs, which are currently covered by all of your faces. Hang on, let me close that. Yeah, so we have an increase in, total program cost of around $9.7 million. We did not receive any public comments in response to this tip amendment, and so, if anyone has questions, we can respond to those, but otherwise we are requesting that the NPO vote to approve the tip amendment as presented.
All right, any questions, amendment number 2, this is for endorsement.
General question.
Yep.
What are the triggers typically that start those new values? Is it some point in the process that in the design or early design that the new values come up?
It could be a change in project scope. I believe the change in project value of 25% or more, correct me if I'm wrong. And then, yeah, so it's scope, value, or project year. I think those things would trigger a tip amendment.
Okay. Thank you.
I have
All
a
right,
question.
any other
So,
questions? Oops,
yeah,
sorry, Pat.
if we endorse this, when will it begin, do you know?
I believe it's on the current, it's on the 2025 tip.
Okay,
And so, and this is state funded, so it's basically the state has figured out where to find the extra funds from and put them together. But this project is currently programmed for this year,
Okay.
and based on my understanding from tip readiness days, it looks like it's ready to go.
okay, and how long will it take? Do you know the?
It's programmed on the tip year based on the advertising date, and so the project length itself could go, oh, Derek, thank you, Derek.
Yeah,
Please take it
so
away.
yeah, so this project has a March 15th ad date at the moment that may need to push out a couple weeks depending on the approval time frame for the STIP action, but it is set to begin advertisements soon. I don't know if D4 has anything else to add on the time frame for the construction length of the project, but we're
Yeah.
funding it wholly in 2025.
Sure, yeah, Derek, I think if it gets advertised in March, we should have a notice to proceed probably in the early summer. I'm thinking about July, and they should be able to start soon after that.
Hmm.
And it's the length is from Burlington all the way to the New Hampshire state line.
So schedule your trips to Boston before July.
There you go, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, other questions? Pat, you good?
Yes, I'm fine, yep.
All right, so can I get a motion second to endorse amendment number 2?
Motion to approve request.
Second,
All right, last chance, any questions? All right, Kelly, you want to read the roll?
Yeah, Steve Wolf,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes,
Pat Wojcik,
yes,
Stephen Thamalis,
Yes.
and Karen Pulio.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Our second tip amendment is a new one. And I am going to hand that over to Blake to describe.
Fantastic. Hello, it's Blake again. So what this is tip amendment 3, and it's a request to release it for public comment. So tip amendment 3 involves the removal of a project, and that is LRTA 011776. That's the tip project number. And we're removing the project because LRTA did not secure funding through a discretionary grant application. And to address the funding shortfall in the tip, a new project is being added, and that is tip project LRTA 012010. And that is to address LRTA facility improvements using 5307 formula funds and transportation development credits. And this concerns the renovations primarily to the McGuire Paratransit Maintenance Facility. And there are no changes in the scope of the project with this tip amendment. can be described primarily as an accounting change. Because the grant wasn't awarded, this change is necessary simply so that the tip is reflecting the financial reality of what's going on. So I will feel free, LRTA partners, Ellie or Justin, to jump in and to add additional information if you feel that's necessary.
Nope, I think you about summed it up, but I'm here if anybody has any questions.
Great, thank you.
All right, does someone want to make a motion, a second, to send Amendment 3 out for public comment?
Motion to approve request.
Second,
All right, any questions? All right, seeing none, Kelly, you want to read the roll?
Yep, Steve Wokel,
Yes.
Brian Fallon,
Yes.
Pat Wojcik,
yes.
Stephen Kamala,
Yes.
Aaron Pulio.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
All right.
We'll have a public
Thank you.
hearing on March 5.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item 9, which is federal fiscal year 26 to 30 tip development. And whoever's doing it, take it away.
Yep, that's me. So just an update, because we have officially begun our tip development process, or the development of our transportation improvement program for federal fiscal years 2026 to 2030. Here we have received our regional apportionment figures from MassDOT. They are basically pretty close to what we had anticipated we had in our prior fiscal years, with some marginal increases or decreases in 2027, 2028, and 2029. And obviously we didn't have 2030 programmed in the last tip because we weren't there yet. However, these are definitely healthy increases over our prior year tips, which I believe are around 8.5 million a year. We participated in tip readiness days in early February, and I'm happy to share that of the projects all of the projects that you see here, these are all currently programmed on the tip, and these are shown in the years that they are programmed in. All of them are, as far as we could tell from tip readiness days and conversations with local engineers, all of these projects are ready to proceed at the dates that they were currently programmed at. So this will be a consideration for us as we go into programming the 2026 to 2030 tip. You know, as projects get further out in the tip process, there's going to be more variability in project cost, because those projects right now are perhaps at pre-25% design or maybe 25% design. Obviously, when we get to 75% design or 100% design, as we've seen with other projects in the last year, those project costs are going to increase. I wish they wouldn't, but that's just the way that the economy works. So, that said, it does look like we do have some flexibility in our funding as we go and allocate new projects to this list in our tip development. I did also want to call attention to some of the projects that are on the statewide tip. These are projects that are within our region. So Yankee Doodle Bike Path Construction Phase 1 is on the tip for this calendar year or this federal fiscal year. That is still scheduled. The projects that are kind of in a pale pink here, the Lowell Bridge Preservation Project and the Drake improvements at George Englesby, those two projects are in red because, well, first of all, the Lowell Bridge Preservation Project that has received funding from the RAISE grant, which I believe is the build grant now. The design is going to start in 2025, but construction is not going to begin until 2027 or 2028. And so it's in red or pale pink because it's not going to start on the year that it was listed as. The same may be true for the Drake project. I think they're still kind of working out the details on whether that project is going to be ready in FFY 2026 or 2027. Every other project that is on the state tip is basically ready to proceed at the year that it's currently scheduled for. And so things, I have to say, our local engineers are moving ahead very well. They're paying good attention to these projects. And it's always nice to see when things are ready and when we anticipate that they're going to be ready. We did, as part of tip readiness days, receive word about 2 new projects. I mean, we knew these were happening through conversations with local engineers. We have a project in Tewksbury at Shawsheen, Foster Road, Patton Road and Beach Street. And then, which is wrapping up its pre-25% design submittal package. And so with that, we'll be getting updated project costs to work with in our tip development for this year. And then we also have a project in Tingsboro regarding a culvert replacement. We did submit, and with the MPO's approval, we submitted this for the statewide resiliency improvement project list last month. Last month or the month before. And so, this is a project that's really about culvert expansion and culvert replacement. The issue with the project is that the cost of utility relocation is very, very expensive. And so this project cost may significantly increase. But these are two projects that we'll be considering in our tip. The other one that has maybe more unfortunate news is phase 2 of the Billerica Yankee Doodle bike path construction. I can't remember the exact amount off the top of my head, but I know that the anticipated cost for phase 2 has increased dramatically. And so one thing we talked about at Tip Readiness Days was any other funding sources that we could apply for, any other grant programs that we could apply for in order to offset the cost of this, because I believe the anticipated cost for phase 2 is possibly going to be triple what is on that on the slide right there, which would potentially gobble up a very large amount of the state's trail funding, and I don't think we can do that. So we're going to be trying to do some creative thinking around funding for that project, but right now it's just not looking very positive. Just as a reminder of the schedule, we'll be coming back to you in March with 2 or more scenarios for the 2026 to 2030 tip. And what I mean by scenarios is that we'll be coming back with a couple of different financial situations where it's like you can fund these projects in this year, you could fund these projects in this year, and here's what we would, we might spread these projects across 2 federal fiscal years, because in order to make sure that we're addressing fiscal constraint and that we're appropriately allocating resources. We are also in the process of updating the tech scoring for all of our projects based on the newly approved tech. And so that will just help us to understand how those projects fit within our regional goals and priorities. So in March, we'll bring those funding scenarios to you. Based on the scenario that you approve, we will go ahead and draft that tip report, and we'll bring that back to you in April. If you vote to release that report for public comment, then we'll have a public hearing in May, and I will bring it back to you at the end of May, and hopefully you would endorse it then, and it would officially become our next tip in October. Any questions on that process?
All right, anyone have any questions, Kelly?
Yeah, Kelly, Steve, on that Lowell Preservation Bridge project, 21 million, what's that allocated for? Is it number of bridges? Yeah, that one, yeah.
So we did a tip amendment to allow Lowell, or to allow that funding to be programmed on the tip. Basically, Lowell received a $21.4 million grant, and they're putting in $500,000 of their own funding for bridge preservation for 4 bridges in the city of Lowell. And we did amend the tip to include that. That's not on our local tip. That's actually just allowing that funding, that federal funding, to be added to the overall tip amount.
Okay, just an outside question. Just have one more question, Kelly, just on the, okay, sorry. The Rourke Bridge project, how's that fit in the grand scheme of things here?
Well, I know District 4 has some updates on the Rourke Bridge project, if you want to share any of those. It is currently programmed for this federal fiscal year, for 2025.
So, Brian, do you want to do it now, or you just want to do it as part of the other updates?
Yeah, we can do it later, Steve. That's fine.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Is that okay, Steve? We'll just cover it then.
That's perfect. Thank you.
All right. Justin, did you have a question? You had your hand up, but
Yeah. I was just, I was curious as to which bridges were part of the raise grant.
All right.
We have a list. Is there a list of specific locations?
I think Liz is here, Liz Ullman from the city of Lowell, and she could probably, I had it in a previous month's presentation. I can't remember off the top of my head.
It is, hi, everybody. It is the Market Street Bridge over the, so that like the main canal, Merrimack Canal,
Yeah.
the Broadway Street over the Western Canal, and Lawrence Street over the River Meadowbrook, and a pedestrian bridge in the HCID district.
Does that answer your question, Justin?
Yeah, do you know the timeline on this project at all? I see an ad date of June, so are they starting this fiscal year?
The grant agreement has not been executed with FHWA yet.
Okay,
I don't have a better timeline.
okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, I think let's move to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 10, remote meetings.
Yeah, this is just to raise your attention to an upcoming potential issue. We've kind of enjoyed this period of people being able to participate remotely. But that is the temporary, the very long-term temporary provision to allow boards and committees to meet remotely is expiring at the end of March. The problem with that, and the reason I want to bring this up is just because in order to conduct our business in April, which is going to be very important to make sure that we're proceeding on schedule with our TIP development and the development of our next unified planning work program. If our legislative body does not approve another extension or put it into law that we can meet in a hybrid or remote or virtual way, we're gonna have to meet in person. And so if I just wanted to raise this because if it's a difficulty to meet in person on a Wednesday at 2:00, I just wanted a heads up now so that I could try to coordinate a time to meet in person, probably the same week, but just maybe at a different time. Scheduling is probably the worst part of planning. So if you could just let me know now, that meeting would be the 4th week of April. And so if 2 p.m. in person is a problem, please let me know now and I'll work with all of you to try to schedule something in person in case we don't get good news by the end of March.
So Kelly, can people, instead of telling you now, can they, because we still have some discussions, I think, with all the MPOs, and don't forget, we try to bundle the MPOs, especially if it doesn't get extended, the chair will definitely have to be in person at a minimum. So do we want, can people send it to you after the meeting? Because we'll have to have more discussion in general, because we're going to want to talk to Merrimack Valley as well and all that stuff too.
Okay.
So
I will follow up with all of you via email, but also just a heads up that I'm going to be sending this email out in the next day.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good heads up, Kelly. We have to figure out a lot of stuff with everyone. So
Yeah, that's true.
All right, anyone have any questions on this?
Yeah, Steve again. Just question, is that the governor's decision or the legislature's decision?
Well, I think the governor has, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that in a supplemental budget, the governor put in an extension of the waiver on the public meeting law. And I think it's now just waiting if it's going to get taken up by the legislature before the expiration of the current extension. I think that's what's going on, Stephen.
Well, I'm just curious. Okay, thanks.
Yep. Any other questions? Miranda, you got something?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that I believe that the legislature is trying to codify it as a permanent option. Though my understanding from our Leg Affairs team is that any proposed bills for this legislative session still haven't been assigned to committee. But we still have another month, so we'll see.
Thanks.
All right, anyone else on this? All right, let's move to agenda item 11, which is staff updates. Kelly, what do you have?
Great. So this is a mix of us. I just wanted to give you all an update because we have a number of projects in our Unified Planning Work Program that we have either started or are about to start. And so I just wanted to give you an update on the status of all of these. The first one, we signed a contract with Tool Design Group. This is a firm that is in Boston, I believe based out of DC. They've done a lot of work in Lowell, and so they're going to be working with us on our regional bicycle and pedestrian plan. We just had a kickoff meeting with them this morning. And we're really excited to get that started. So we will be issuing a call for advisory committee members in the next few weeks. And if, I would love to, I'm gonna send that to this group, and if you could help share the word, it's gonna be really important, to find those advisory committee members as kind of our first sounding board in what our regional network for bicycle and pedestrian connections will look like. That committee will probably meet about 6 times over the course of the next year. So not a super heavy lift, but a very important role in thinking about the future of multimodal transportation in our region. Regarding the UPWP, just a reminder that we are going to be starting that up as well. So we have a number of project ideas. We'll present those project ideas to you in March. And then in March or April, and then in May, we'll be bringing the draft UPWP back to you. Hopefully you'll release that for a public comment period. We'll bring it back in June, in which case you would vote to endorse it, and then it would become our new Unified Planning Work Program starting in October of 2025. We also kicked off in the last couple of weeks an update to our website. This is funded through deobligated PL funds, and so we'll be working, Blake is leading that project, and we'll be working to make our website more accessible and with better language translation performance, better posting of minutes and agendas, and so we're gonna be working on that in earnest. And then the other item here is regarding the jobs accessibility analysis, which I need to switch presentations a second. And Blake is gonna share that scope of work. Hang on just a second. Oh, hang on, I just need to share my screen. There we go.
All right, so just a minute for me to sort of give you a high level view of what this discrete study is about. So this was a sentence in the UPWP under task 7.2. And I've started this project already and in the process of doing the analysis. And essentially what this is to understand where in the region is reachable with LRTA transit, and where are the potential gaps, there are opportunities for improving service. And the destination that we're looking at is jobs, like where are the jobs in the region and how many of them are reachable within different time budgets. And since we have GTFS, or basically just schedules, bus schedule data going back a little bit more than 10 years, we can do an analysis to see how that accessibility changes over time, to see if there's possibly areas in the region where there's job growth or there's been some changes in where jobs are concentrated, to see, hey, is there opportunities for changing transit service possibly to better match patterns. And then another part of this study is also to compare LRTA's job accessibility with some peer agencies. I think our peer agencies that we've selected are NEVA, Worcester's RTA, and Brockton's RTA. Other gateway cities with somewhat similar travel patterns and densities, just to see, how do they change over time and how does that compare to the greater Lowell region. And that's the study. The image on your right is just an example of sort of what an analysis like this would look like. What you do is you run a tool that generates something called an isochrone, which is essentially just a shape of everywhere that is theoretically reachable within a certain amount of time using the transit system and by walking. And so the shape gets bigger as the amount of time that you allow grows. So that's just, imagine like 30 minutes being like the orange and maybe like 60 minutes being the red and the purple being 90 minutes. And what we're doing is we're looking at the locations of jobs within those areas to see how many are accessible and looking for potential gaps. So I welcome any questions about it, about the study. But it's still in process, so it's we're still kind of figuring some of the details out.
All right, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, like just curious where those zones are, would there be more potential, to look at those areas for funding from the state or whatever in terms of helping businesses in those areas, since it's more, accessible to, transportation, infrastructure and so forth, based on these isochrones? Is that something they're trying to get at? I'm not too sure what the message is.
I think it's also, I kind of see this as almost like an appendix to the SEDS, or the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. So it's really
Right.
just, it's a preliminary analysis to understand, like, are there opportunities to better connect people to jobs? And if
Okay.
we discover that there are opportunities, then we can identify, is there funding for transit or is there funding for jobs? Like, but without knowing like what the basic situation is, like, are we connecting people to jobs in the best way? Without knowing the answer to that, it's hard to know what the programs would be that we could avail ourselves of. So this is really like trying to get a good sense of where are the people and where do they need to go?
Okay, thank you.
All right, any more questions? I think let's move on. I think Kelly, was that the last one under staff updates?
Yeah, and then we have the tip status report.
So I believe that's you, Tim, correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah, Tim Paris, District 4 Planning. To start it off, we've got our District 4 and District 6 vulnerable road user systemic safety project near bus stops. That's a tongue twister for me. 6/13/605. The ad date moved from October to February on that of this year. And there was some small cost increases on that. 6/13/398 Chelmsford Lowell Interstate Pavement Preservation and Related Work on 495. This is not actually a new it appears that this was divided up. There's two projects with the same name. So and I believe Brian might have a little more insight on it, but I think what happened is just the project was split. It might be northbound and southbound is two separate projects now, and it's and that's why that appears now as a new project. 6/13/213 Bedford, Billerica, Chelmsford, Tingsboro Bridge Preservation of 41 bridges in the Route 3 corridor. That had some cost changes. There was some reduction in the total cost of the project. 6/13/109 Chelmsford Lowell deck replacement, the Lowell connector, and over 495. That had some cost increases, about $1.5 million. 6/12/609 Tewksbury intersection improvements at Main Street, Pleasant Street, and North Street, East Street. That had some cost changes, about $0.5 million each of an increase in the total contract cost. 609/510 Drake improvements at George Englesby Elementary School, the Safe Routes to School project. That ad date moved back 2 months to September of 26. And we've had some cost increases of about $400,000. 609/333 Lowell Merrimack Riverwalk pedestrian path extension and plaza overlook. This made its way onto our list again just because it's listed in there, and this was an effort to make sure our list was complete. But I believe this project has sort of been shelved, just because it involved some DCR land, and they weren't willing to have us cut trees and things like that. So that was a couple years ago. That whole thing got shelved. 609-250. We had some cost changes. The tip number increased 2.5 million, and we had about $100,000 increase in both total cost and the TFPCC. On 608-774 Lowell Tewksbury Route 38 intersection improvements. There was just a jump in the percent complete of the work. It's I believe it was about a 20% increase, so they're making some headway on that project. 608-574 Burlington to Tingsboro traffic guide signs on a section of Route 3. The construction there is almost completed. 608-227 Billerica Yankee Doodle bike path construction phase 1. The update in the comments was there from last time, but the costs have increased based on the latest submittal of that. So we've got about an $8 million increase there. 607-887 the Rourke Bridge. We've got about a $5 million decrease in the cost of that. I know you had questions about that. I believe this says not yet awarded. I think Brian has more information about that. It could just be that our when we created the spreadsheet, our PINFO records were not up to date yet. 607-401 Chelmsford traffic signal installation at Route 110 and 495, 2 locations. That had some cost changes, an increase of about $500,000. And 605-966 Lowell reconstruction related work on VFW Highway. There were some minor changes in the cost.
Right.
And
I
Oops,
see.
sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say, Brian, you want to jump in on the work, and then I'll let people ask questions?
Yeah, sure. Quickly, I can add some more information on the Rourke Bridge. On January 23rd, the bids were open. There was 3 design build bidders that were trying to get this contract, and there was one contractor that submitted a price proposal and a technical proposal, and we basically look at both, things together. It's not just price, but it's the value of the technical proposal that they present. And there was an apparent best value design builder, and that was Skanska USA Civil. And there's kind of a process that has to go before the contract gets awarded. It has to go to the Board of Commissioners, and they also have to check the bonding and insurance and things like that before the contract can be officially awarded. So, but there has been an apparent best value design bid builder, and it's going forward. Thank you.
Stephen, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right, anyone else have any questions on any of the other projects Tim went over? All right, thank you, Tim and Brian, appreciate it. On agenda item 13, are there any other business that anyone would like to bring to the NPO's attention today? All right, seeing none, can I get a motion and second to adjourn, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. We got through a lot today. Enjoy the nicer, warmer weather, and we'll see you in about a month. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Bye.
You too. See ya.